Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm Andrew Musgrove, joined by John Gibson. He's back from his holidays here on the Everything is Black and White podcast to talk about Kieran Trippier this week. It's an episode that we've been looking forward to bringing you. Plenty of you guys have responded to my shout outs on social media to get in touch about Kieran Trippier and what you think the next year holds from at Newcastle. So thank you very much for doing so. John, welcome back to the show. Did you have a nice break?
Yes, it's good to be back. The break was great. It was sweltering hot, almost too hot, but it was fabulous. And I was away for a fortnight, and I missed out because it was Newcastle did nothing while I was away, and we didn't expect them to in the transfer market because the whole holiday was in June, and they're not going to get going until July. But I'm back and looking forward to what's ahead for us.
Well, fingers crossed, there's plenty of signs to come this summer. Just initially on the transfer market, John, how are you feeling about it? Are you a bit nervous, or are you staying patient and calm and not going to pass judgment until the end of the window?
I'm anxious. I'm not going to pass judgment until the end of the window, but I am anxious. Um, Newcastle were never going to come flying out the blocks, even though Eddie wanted them to. I think they always wanted to be into July for a new set of accounts before they got people. But of course, we're anxious. And I tell you, Andrew, you've just got to think we finished fifth, which was absolutely terrific, but it was the last position to get the Champions League. Now, all of the four teams ahead of us, above us, have recruited. Even Arsenal have got two players past the post. They're just waiting to formally announce them after July the 1st. But they've done the deal with the player, with the club, and with the medical, etc., etc. So we are the only club out of the top five that haven't bought anybody. And people like Manchester United, who are looking to recover ground, have bought people, Cunha, etc., and they're going to get the Brentford winger in a matter of time. So yes, I'm anxious, like all Geordies, because well, for the main reason being, Andrew, that we're not talking about one signing, we're talking about four. You know, if you just need one, you can say, well, there's still 2 months to go, all of July and all of August. We're going to be okay. Two things to say about that. First, a lot of the cream has been whipped off the top. Plenty more fish in the sea, but a lot of the cream is gone. And secondly, we're after four, we're not after one. And if we got one, I would be very disappointed because we need more than one with Champions League coming along. And I think Eddie and the players have overachieved in the last season. They were fabulous. To win the first domestic trophy in 70 years and getting the Champions League was fabulous. But they overachieved on the size of the squad, and therefore they need help. Don't let them down. But two reasons. Eddie's going to get dispirited if you let him down. And secondly, you're only delaying the inevitable with people like Isaac or Bruno or Gordon. If you don't buy anybody this window, and I don't suspect for 1 minute we will buy nobody. But if we don't get three or four in, they'll go in a year's time if we stagnate. So if we want to keep Isaac, etc., which we definitely do, then encourage them by getting people in. There's still time. But I think it's right to shout the worries because it's right for Newcastle United to know the concerns, and there's right for us to want things to happen. And we're at July the 1st. We could have had three deals lined up and done them on July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. It doesn't look as if we've quite reached that stage, although Trafford will probably lead the way. But we need to get busy, and we have a right to emphasize the situation because if standing still is going backwards, that is what's believed. Liverpool have won the title and signed about five players already. And Man City and Chelsea don't know how to stop signing players. So, we are in a very competitive situation and we haven't done anything yet. There's still time. We could still get the four, and we will be thrilled to bits if we get the four. But there's no question that a lot of our number one targets are now not available to us.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed by the time this episode comes out on Thursday morning, Newcastle United have made a breakthrough, most likely to be James Trafford, although I wouldn't hold our breaths at this current point in time. Thank you to Saily, our sponsors of the Everything is Black and White podcast, a new eSIM service app brought to you by the creators of NORD VPN. If you've ever been lost abroad or badly needing an internet connection with no Wi-Fi spot in sight, you'll understand what a difference a local SIM card can make. An eSIM provides an internet connection wherever you travel and saves you money on your roaming fees. Download the app once and away you go. Global and regional plans to choose from. You save time. There's also 24/7 support available, which is really important. If you want a discounted offer on your eSIM provided by Saily, hit the link in the podcast description box. Keep yourself connected and support the podcast at the same time. On to today's main topic then, John, and that is Mr. Kieran Trippier, 34 years of age, 1 year left on his deal. Plenty of questions about his future. The main one being, does he stay? Does he go? I think we've got to start though with his kind of re-emergence towards the end of last season, because he wasn't really getting the game time. Then we had Lewis Hall get injured when Tino Livramento went to left back. Kieran Trippier came in. When the news broke about Lewis Hall being injured and missing the rest of the season, Kieran Trippier went on to start 10 of the last 13 games in all competitions, including, of course, the Carabao Cup final, where he was superb. And, maybe persuaded a lot of people that he's still got something to offer at Newcastle United, although probably not first choice. But talk to us, John, first off, about his kind of rebirth towards the end of last season.
Yeah, I mean, he did terrifically well because it was a key time of the season when Lewis was injured, and Lewis Hall could easily have been our player of the year if he'd been able to continue playing to the end of the season. That's the sort of form he was in. It looked like a killer to us because we hadn't an automatic left back, so it meant either Trips or Livramento playing left back, and Livramento got the call and Trips played right back. That could have seen us implode because we had the League Cup final to win our first domestic trophy in 70 years, and we had the run in to either make the Champions League or not. It could have been a killer for us. Trips absolutely rose to the occasion, did brilliantly, and yet with hindsight, should we be so amazed? Because he is a natural leader of men. He has a terrific attitude to the game of football. He has a great self belief, which good players must have. And he got the job done tremendously well. Now, not only is he 34 now, but he's 35 in September, shortly after this new season started. But I mean, we have just mentioned in passing the current situation in the transfer market, which is another reason why we keep him. If we sell him now in the last year of his contract, and it's 34, 35 in September, we're not going to get a fortune from him if we did put him on the transfer market. But we can't afford not to have him because we were in 3 competitions last season and we were totally stretched. We're in 4 major competitions this season, and he is absolute quality. Yes, he's on the wrong side of the hill. Tell me anybody that's 34 coming up 35 that isn't. And yes, he's definitely number 2 choice because Livramento is the first choice and will be for an awful long time. And what a Rolls Royce he is. But I mean, even if he's got to play left back on the opening day of the season because Hall's not ready, then there's no reason why Trips doesn't start on the opening day at right back. And I would have no qualms with that. I mean, for me, this guy has been everything the Newcastle United currently stand for. He's the godfather of the modern NUFC for me. He was the first blue chip player to come in and light the touch paper for us to set off for the skies after the takeover in what, October 21 or whatever it was. I mean, it's not that long ago, but he had just won La Liga with Atletico Madrid, beating Real Madrid and Barca out there. I mean, how good is that? And he wanted to come home, and he chose to come home to Newcastle. We were getting a La Liga champion, current champion, at the time, who was willing to come to a club that was facing relegation. I mean, one of his first games he played for us, Andrew, as you will well remember, is Cambridge at home in the FA Cup, and we got tongued. So that's the sort of start Kieran had, and yet we went from that nosebleeds speed to making the Champions League, appearing in 2 League Cup finals, and making the Champions League again. And he was the start of it all. Everybody else that come, without him, there would have been no Isaac, no Gordon, no Botman, no Tonali. They wouldn't have come without the foundations he put in. And even Bruno, who come very early, was early after him. Trips opened the door, and Trips made other good players think, hey, he's just won La Liga and he's come to Newcastle. He knows there's going to be takeoff. He believes in what's happening at the club. Why shouldn't we believe also? And I mean, he was higher up the scale with respect than Bruno, who was playing in France, than Isaac, who was playing further down the pecking order in Spain, than Gordon, who was at Everton. I mean, he was playing at a higher level and won things than any of them, and yet he came and played for us. And we'll be forever in his debt from doing that.
Most certainly so. And I think he's gone on record, John, as saying that when he signed the deal, there was no relegation clause in it. And that was him showing belief in Eddie Howe and the rest of the squad that they would survive and go on to great things. And that in itself probably added to reason to why other players joined, because they saw a man of his magnitude and what he achieved previously, as you've mentioned, taking the gamble, but believing in the project as well. And he has really been the benchmark in many ways on the pitch. You know, his assists, his experience, his leadership has been absolutely superb. But we are at a much different time of his career. When he came in, he was always going to be first choice. He was going to be one of the stars. That is not how it is now. Everybody is fit. It's Tino Livramento on the right and Lewis Hall on the left. What do you think is going through Kieran Trippier's mind at this moment? Say an offer does land on the table from wherever. He sits down with Eddie Howe and he goes, right, Gaffer, tell me what the future holds. And you know, we're just guessing here, but you know, my take would be that you are not guaranteed to be a first choice right back. You are second choice because Tino is arguably one of the best right backs currently in the Premier League. Is only going to get better. What does Kieran Trippier think? What does Kieran Trippier do at this stage in his career?
Well, first and foremost, Andrew, he's not going to get a better club than us at this stage of his career. He's not going to get a club that's above us in the table because he's 35 in September. So if he's thinking in terms of being with a big club, then he is with a big club, and he's at the biggest club he's ever going to know again in his playing career. He's at a club who's going to play in the Champions League football this coming season. He's in a club where he's valued highly by the manager, and where he will get game time, no question. In all four competitions, he'll get game time. He'll get Premier League time and Champions League time, and the two domestic cups, of course. He is coming up 35. So the only reason he would leave Newcastle today rather than in a year's time on a free, because that may appeal at 35 coming up 36. But today, the only reason he'd leave is if Eddie told him, "Look, we want to cash in on you, and there's no real future for you here." Now, Eddie's not going to say that, and we're not going to be able to cash in to any significant degree in terms of the fee. So he is definitely better off here. The only reason he would leave is for a signing on fee and bigger wages. His wages won't be small here because his wages haven't gone down from the wages he was on originally when he was King B here. So there isn't a reason, in my humble opinion, for him to go. He's not going to get a better club. He's not going to get a bigger club. He's not going to get the opportunity to play in the Champions League this season anywhere else. He's going to take a downward step to a mediocre or below average Premier League side, or a side battling in the Championship. So stay where you are. It's a no-brainer for me that he stays and we keep him.
Yeah, because I guess alongside that question is about what fee it would take for Newcastle United to consider this a good deal to cash in. But with his age and his wage, you know, as you've mentioned, you're not going to get a lot of
No,
money at all. And there's not many clubs out there that would look at Kieran Trippier now and think, well, actually, we are going to stump up even £5 to £8 million because
No.
it's the wages which are the issue. I'm not doubting that he could still do a job, and he can still do a job for Newcastle United. Obviously, if he moves to the Middle East or he moves to a lower Premier League side, then more game time and what have you. We're not doubting that, but it's just making the numbers work for any buying team, and I can't see anyone getting the calculator out and coming to a positive conclusion there. So I think that's another reason why he does stay. But I said there, John, he can still do a job. When he gets these moments, whether it be in the Cups or whether it indeed is in the Champions League, or heaven forbid, he might be needed like he was towards the end of last season and have to have a sustained run of games in the Premier League, can he still cut it?
Yes, I think he can. I mean, I think he can only really cut it at a very good level for another season, but he can certainly cut it this season. Hey, don't be surprised if he's right back on the opening day against Aston Villa, because there's no certainty that Lewis Hall will be up to um, physical shape and up to speed after the injury he's had. It depends on what he can play pre-season, Lewis. But and he will be back, and they will be the two fullbacks. But there's no guarantee that Lewis will be left back on the opening day of the season. And if he isn't, it will be Trippier and Livramento. And at the moment, the squad's thin enough without us getting rid of Trips, just for the sake of it. And as I say, for him, let him go if he wants to go to the Middle East or get a big payday. The best time to do that's when you're 35 and you've got a free transfer, and you can go and rest on your laurels and have a little time in the sun and a just reward. At the moment, he can play Champions League football again. I mean, surely the one thing Newcastle qualifying for the Champions League took away any remote possibility of Trips or people like him looking for a last tour somewhere else.
Yeah. And do you think, John, he will be happy and accepting of the fact that in an ideal world for Newcastle United, he is second choice right back?
Of course he will be, because he's 35 in September. It'll take a big puff to blow all his candles out in one go. I mean, so he's going to accept that, because he's a very clever boy and he knows the game well, and you don't have to be too clever to work out that at almost 35 you haven't got much longer left. And who's to say, as I've repeatedly said here, that he won't start in Aston Villa? And I tell you what, if he does start at Aston Villa, he'll take some moving, Andrew, once he's in the side, because if you wait for his bad game to move him, you might have to wait a little while for him to have a bad game, because he look what he did at the end of the season. If we had any doubts about what he can do, the way he finished the season after Hall was injured surely scuppered all those doubts, because he was first class at Wembley against the best side in the Premier League, and helped us secure the Champions League football. So well done him, and it's lovely to see him have a last hurrah, because I think he did have a dip. He did have a little while when he first went out of the team, where he looked for the first time in his life not so wildly enthusiastic as he always is, where he had to perhaps take stock, where perhaps he had problems to think about off the field and on the field, and he didn't quite look the man we knew and adored. But then he come out the other side of that and looked very much the man and he looked as if he was actually enjoying his football again, and that was marvelous. I mean, while he's been here, people like I don't know, Lascelles and Bruno have been officially the skippers of Newcastle. But for me, we've talked about having leaders all over the park. He's been a leader from day one, and effectively he's been skipper of this side from day one. I mean, his vision, his free kicks, we didn't mention, and everything else, especially when he first arrived. The free kicks he scored from around the box was absolutely tremendous. He's got a great drive and passion for the game. He's got a good vision. He's still got legs to get up that right-hand side and attack from the right back position. He's still got the legs to do that. And I've got nothing but praise and respect for him. He has been a colossal signing for Newcastle United. Being an old guy, which means I've seen an awful lot, but just over the period of time, I in the modern Newcastle, because I can't go back, even me, to the Bill McCracken days, etc., etc. So we can never compare players like that. For me, there's only been one player that's possibly better at right back than Trippier in all the time I've known Newcastle United from the 50s, and that's David Craig. And it's difficult to put Trips ahead of David Craig because Trips has played 123 matches for Newcastle all in, all competitions, while David Craig played 460. So David Craig has done it at Newcastle over a much longer period of time than Trips. Craigie was a one club man. He was absolutely quality. And for me, I've got to leave him as my number one. I did say a couple of years back that Trips could challenge Craigie. And I think he did that. And had he come earlier, you would have given him a real run for his money. But if you're talking about what the guys did for Newcastle alone and not for other clubs, then David Craig's got to be ahead of him. But I can't think of anybody else that is ahead of him.
To mention Trippier in the same breath as David Craig is quite the praise, isn't it? Because fans of all ages will know about David Craig and what he achieved at Newcastle United, like you said, the longevity there. So a really talented player to put in the same bracket as Kieran Trippier. You mentioned last season, 32 appearances, 4 assists. As you mentioned there, 123 appearances, 4 goals and 25 assists. And that's his kind of forte, is getting down that right, working with the winger, getting the ball in the box. His dead ball delivery is absolutely excellent as well. And that's the big asset. Of course, the other asset is that experience. You mentioned the kind of the captaincies have been switched around in the leadership. But what I've loved, especially seeing last season when he couldn't get into the side, John, was him on the touchline. You could see him gesturing and moving people into positions. And I think that's been really key, is that experience on and off the pitch.
Yeah, without a shadow of doubt. I mean, his career stats are 552 games he's played in top class football. Now that's an awful lot of experience, and he brings it to bear when he plays, and that is to our advantage. Yes, we've got one of the oldest squads in the Premier League. Squads, not team, because when you get Livramento in Hall and various other people in the side, and if Lewis Miley gets in the side, the age comes down. But as a squad, we're a very aged squad, and we need to address that. And in a way, we can address it by getting Wilson and Ruddy and perhaps even Lascelles off the wage bill. They might go off the wage bill. Dubrovka might go off the wage bill if we sign Trafford to go with Pope, and all that will get the age down. But you've got to have age which equates to experience. You've got to have that as well, as Sunderland will find out this season in the Premier League. You can have a load of good kids, but you've got to have experience. And Trips has got huge experience, and that will be vital to us. And I think I mean, I have talked in the past whether it was time to cash in on him. I'm talking about 12 months ago when we could have cashed in and got a few quid and got other players into the club. That time's gone. As the time went to cash in on Callum Wilson, because we didn't do it at the time. And I would, under these circumstances, Tripp has been truly magnificent. He hasn't got the injury problems that Callum Wilson's got. And I think he will be a very valuable asset, particularly the way the squad stands at this given moment, Andrew. And we don't know what it's going to be like when the window closes. But it isn't good at the moment. And we're certainly not going to have another right back in into the squad this summer. And we don't want another right back in. So he's good as cover for Livramento. I know we've got Kraft as well, but we've got him covering the right side of centre half. And you've got to have more than 2 anyway. So we need 3. But I wouldn't take Trips out and put Kraft in there, because we're really going thinner than we can dare go for the season we've got ahead. So I think he's got a vital part to play for us. And when the moment does come for him to go, and it might be in 12 months' time when his contract's up, I'll remember him with a great fondness and a huge appreciation, because I'll reiterate what I said earlier. He's the godfather of the modern Newcastle for me, because he opened the door for everyone else.
Yeah, I would totally agree with everything you said then. people who listen to this podcast or watch it regularly will know that I was a big advocate for Trippier being sold last summer, the January before, but I have changed my mind largely due to the fact of how he finished the season. I thought he was absolutely superb, and now looking ahead to the season that's going to come up, that experience, whether he's playing or not, is going to be so key. And he strikes me as a character who is accepting of his fate. He knows his age, and he
Yeah,
knows he's not going to rock the boat. He knows that if he gets called upon, he'll take his opportunity and put his very best into it, and he can still cut it at the very, very top. But he'll also be accepting, John, that time catches up with everybody. He maybe has
of
lost a
course,
little bit of pace,
of
still
course.
sharp in the mind, but not in the legs as much as he used to be. So I think the situation presents itself very well. He'll get opportunities to play this season, probably in the Champions League. But at the same time, he'll not be required to play every single game
He
or
wouldn't
every
be able
single week.
he wouldn't be able to play every single game, Andrew,
Yeah, which is why
because
it makes sense for him to stop and accept
yeah,
that and play a
yeah,
lesser role.
because of his legs, and we often see him, don't we? We look and he stretches and we think, I hope it's just cramp. It's when we see him go down late in the game because he's at that stage of his career. He would be unable to play every game, but he's not injury prone like Callum. He will be there, and he will get plenty of games. I would absolute forecast without fear of contradiction that he will play in all four competitions this season. He will appear in the Premier League, he'll appear in the Champions League, and he'll appear in the two domestic cups. There will be plenty of games for him. He's no longer with any club an automatic number one right back who's going to play 38 league games and the cups. He's not going to be capable of doing that. But when he comes in, A, he won't let you down, and B, he'll take some shifting. He'll take some shifting because he'll put in a performance. Now, he's a clever lad. He's nobody's fool. He's shown that throughout his career. He knows he's at that stage. We're all at that stage at some time. Vardy had a finish at Leicester, who's Mr. Leicester, because age catches you up. We wish it hadn't, etc., etc. It happens to every single player. Look at Messi and Ronaldo now. Why aren't they now at Real Madrid and Barcelona, where they made their reputations? Because age catches you up eventually. It happens to everybody. But there's still some petrol in the tank with Trips.
Certainly so. And as we both agree there, he's the kind of character, I think, to accept all of that, to understand all that, and then make it work for him. And a lot of people, as I said, have got in touch on social media regarding Trippier's future at Newcastle United. And the majority, John, or as we are saying, that he should now stop at Newcastle United for the next year and then leave on a free. Some have said it'd be good to see him getting added to the coaching side of things as well, which I totally agree with that, although I don't think that will happen. But I'll read through some of the comments, John, and then we can dive into whatever you like. And we've got Maggie Magpie saying, I think he's given us enough since he came in at our lowest depth that the decision should be up to him. Jeff says, what's a year of Trips worth? Can't replace him for under 30 million. It's a no-brainer. Spending area is more important. Terence says 100% stay. I've been looking at getting him into a coaching role. His leadership has been there for us all to see. Can still play as well. A lot of games this season, many competitions, and a great professional. Johnny says, of course he stays. He's at the stage in his career where he won't be expecting to start, but will still get plenty of game time. Jamie says he's not first choice, but he's vital cover at fullback. Daniel has a few concerns. He says the main issue with keeping Trips is he's not able to play twice a week if there's an injury to Tino. That's unless Leo Shahar will stay at the club as backup. There are certain fixtures in the season where you'd really worry about Trippier. Certain players can cause a lot of issues. Jake references that he's a leader and will be classed for the 21s. Toons says won't be first choice for most games, but will get game time needed on and off the pitch, especially for Champions League football. John says definitely keep him, but he'd try and get in Kyle Walker-Peters on a free as a long-term replacement. Obviously, though, Tino still remains as first choice. And as I said, the majority of them as we go on are in favour of him stopping. Anything, John, there that stands out for you?
Yeah, I think all of it sort of supporting what the two of us have said in the main so far. I think he's got to stay. It was interesting that somebody said let it be up to him because in a way, he's earned that right to decide his future. But I think if you asked him, he'd want to stay this season and probably take a free next. I don't think he's looking to get away and Newcastle are stopping him. I don't think that'll be a case whatsoever. It may have been the case had we not made the Champions League, but we have. Um, no, I think it's a win-win for the club and for him. And he would go with my blessing in a year's time on a free, because he would be then just a few months off 36. And I think a new contract then would be the realms that we're getting into with whether Callum Wilson should have got a new contract or not. I don't think that applies, but that's a year off. I think it's a win-win for both Trips and for us as we stand now. And as I reiterate, he could well be playing on the opening day of the season.
Yeah, well, we'll wait and see and get that team sheet, because I agree with you. I think maybe a little bit too early for Lewis Hall to come back at left back. But if Trippier performs well, Tino's out on the left, it means that Lewis Hall doesn't have to rush back and has time to regain his fitness, which is probably the better option longer term. Thanks to John for popping me on to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I want to know your views on Kieran Trippier. As me and John have both said there, he stops for this year and then leaves on a free. He's still got lots to offer, but do you agree? Let us know in the comments, and me and John will be back next week. Thank you very much for tuning in.